In this video, we will see how to create a clustered and non-clustered index in SQL. First of all, why do we have to create a clustered and non-clustered index? So, creating clustered and non-clustered index can improve the performance of our SQL query drastically. So, creating the right clustered index and non-clustered index on the table will improve the SQL performance or the performance of our query execution. So, it is important that we create the right clustered and non-clustered index in SQL table whenever we create a table. So for that we are going to use the database questions, and inside the database we are going to create a table which is called as the books table, and to the books table I am going to insert some values. So let me execute the first part of the query and let us create a table called as books. And here I am showing the creation of the table also because I am giving some particular constraints to some of the columns, and this become important when we come to the later part of the query. So here we are going to create the table books inside the questions database. So I'm going to execute this part of the query, and now the books table have been created. And inside the book table we have actually 4 columns which are ID, name, category and price, and all the columns have been assigned one constraint commonly, that is not null constraint. So each of the column should not contain any null values. Also, the ID column, it is given that ID column is considered as the primary key column. So ID will be assigned only one ID will be assigned to a single row. So the value won't be repeating. And name is variable character and the length is given as 50. And category is given as 50. Category is given as variable character and the length is same 50, and price is integer int. And now moving to the second part of the query, I am going to insert 10 values into the book table. So execute the query. Now 10 values have been inserted into the books query. Now let me query the table and simply let us see if the table have been created like we intended. So this is the table which is created. So now as you can see, the table is being created with 10 values. Now moving down to the second part, now we are going to basically see how to create a clustered index for the table books. So even before creating a clustered index, whenever we are giving a primary key constraint to a column, when we create a table, by default a clustered index will be created on that particular column. So here, even without defining a clustered index separately, a clustered index have been created on the ID column. In order to see that, we can execute this query, which is execute sp_help index books. So the syntax is like execute. This is a default stored procedure which is available by default in the SQL Server, and this is the table name. So this will give all the this will give all the indexes which are part of a particular table. So now if I execute the query, we can see that a index is created which is named as pk_book and some number have been given, and the index description is a clustered index unique primary key located on the primary column, that is based on the ID column. By default a clustered index is created on the books table. So in this case we don't have to create a separate clustered index, but in many cases it is not like we are going to use the exact same clustered index which is by default created based on the primary key. In that cases we will have to remove this index which is by default created, and then we have to create a separate clustered index based on our requirement. So here what we are going to do is we will remove this clustered index first. So the syntax for this is given like alter table books drop constraint. So we are going to drop the constraint primary key index which is created, that is pk_book, and I have to here this part is exactly the name that we are getting from the stored procedure executed. So I'm going to copy this name, we'll paste it here instead of the previous name. So if I execute this, now command completed successfully. Now we have dropped the by default created clustered index. Now if I come back and again run this query which is execute sp_help index and the table name, which is books. Now the table will be blank. Yeah, see, the object books does not have any indexes, or you do not have permission. In this case, actually, the object book currently does not have any index, because using the alter statement and drop constraint, we have removed the by default created by default created clustered index on the primary key column, which is ID. Now we are going to separately create a clustered index on the books table. For that, the syntax is like create clustered index. This is the index name, that is whatever index name we have to give to the table, that we have to provide here. And the angle bracket also is not necessary. The complete thing we have to remove and provide the index name. And on table, that is the table name we have to provide on which table we are going to create the clustered index. And inside the bracket, we have to provide the column name, and also ascending or descending we have to provide. It is not mandatory, but if we want to provide a particular order, we can provide that as well, because in case of clustered index, the data will be ordered by default in the order of that clustered index. So if we want to order by default the data in ascending order based on the clustered index, we can provide ascending, and if we want it in the descending order, we can provide descending. Even without that, it is fine, the query will work perfectly. So here, using this syntax, we are going to create a clustered index on the name column. So create clustered index, and this is the index name, that is test underscore index underscore name on the book table, and inside the bracket we are going to give the column name. Now let me run the query and let us see what is happening. So command completed successfully. So a clustered index have been created. Now let us execute sp underscore help index query and see the index which is created. So now if you see, a new index is created, which is test underscore index underscore name, which is the name that we have provided, and it is a clustered index and which is created on the column name. So this is one method of creating a clustered index on the name column. Also here we can provide ascending or descending depending upon our requirement. Now moving down, also not only on a single column we can create clustered index, we can create clustered index on multiple columns as well. That is not multiple clustered index, a single clustered index using multiple columns. Let us see that as well. Before that, let me remove this clustered index, because for a particular table only single clustered index can be created. So now if we try to create a second clustered index, we will get an error, because a table cannot have multiple clustered index. So I will use the column ID instead of this name. I will use ID. So test underscore index underscore ID is the new clustered index name, and this is the column on which we are going to create the clustered index. Now if I run this query, we will get an error, because a second clustered index cannot be created on a table. So if you see the error, cannot create more than one clustered index on the books table. Drop the existing clustered index, test index name before creating another. So what I can do is I can remove this clustered index, and then I can create a second clustered index on the books table. So now let us go and remove the clustered index, which is test underscore index underscore name, and then let us create a second index. So we only have to use a drop statement, that is drop index. Let me come back, and yeah, we have been doing it here. So drop index. So the table is books dot the index name, that is test underscore index underscore name. Now we can delete the index. So now the clustered index has been deleted, that is test index is no more available. Now we can create a new clustered index on the same table, that is create clustered index test index ID on book on the ID column. Now if I execute, command completed successfully, a new clustered index have been created. Now if I execute the query one more time, we will execute it after this query. Execute sp underscore help underscore index, Now you can see that a new index have been created, which is based on the column ID. So this is the index name, index description, and index key, that is based on which column. Now creating an index on multiple columns, but before that we have to remove this clustered index, because it is not possible to create multiple clustered index on a same table. So drop index underscore name, instead of name ID, drop index. Yeah, so currently we don't have any index have been removed. Yeah, index is removed now, which is clustered index is removed. Now we are going to create a clustered index based on ID as well as name, comma name. Now let us run the query and see ID, name also let us change. Okay, now let me see what is happening. See, command completed successfully. Now if we execute sp underscore help underscore index, now a new index have been created, that is test underscore index underscore ID underscore name. The index key columns are ID and name. So the index is created based on ID and name. Index description is, it is a clustered index. Clustered index on multiple columns. Yeah, why we are removing this clustered index is because multiple clustered index cannot be created on a single table. So that is why we are removing this clustered index using the drop statement. Now let us move to the next part of the statement, and also creating a clustered index based on the earlier syntax that we saw is also implemented here, that is create clustered index based on the price column, and by default an ascending order is also given. So what happens is, now if we create a clustered index based on this price column, when we query the data, by default the data will be sorted based on the price column in ascending order. Let us see that also. Before that, let me remove the previous index created, that is test underscore index underscore name. So let us drop this index. Then let us create drop index books dot index name. So this index is removed. Okay, completed. Now creating a clustered index based on the price column in ascending order. Execute, completed successfully. Now if I query the table, which is select star from books, we can see that the table by default, without giving any order by close, is displayed in the ascending order of the price. That is 1300 is the first record, coming down 8000 is the last record, which is displayed in ascending order. And if it was if instead of this ascending it was descending, then instead of this order it would have been in the other order, that is in the descending order. In that case 8000 would have been the first record. Similarly 5400 second record, 5000 the third record, and similarly till 1300. Now moving to the next part, which is the non-clustered index. Non-clustered index is also similar in case of syntax, that is create non-clustered index. Here the angle bracket and the index name should be removed and should give the corresponding index name, and on table, and inside the bracket we have to provide the column name with the ascending and descending order. It is not compulsory, and even if we not provide that, we will get the result. And create a non-clustered index. Now let us go ahead and create a non-clustered index on the table. So create non-clustered index. The index name is int underscore book underscore name. On books, the column we are going to use is name in the ascending order. Let me execute the query, and this will be completed, because even if a table has a clustered index, we can go ahead and create a non-clustered index. There is no problem. And also we can create multiple non-clustered index. And coming down, creating a second non-clustered index. Create non-clustered index int underscore book underscore category. That is the index name. And this is created on category index. Category column in the ascending order. Now if I run the query, a second index will be created. Now if we go ahead and execute sp underscore help index books query, now we'll be able to see that. See, executing this query, 3 indexes will be available. and the first will be the index name, that is index book category, index book name, index book price. And in the index description, you can see that the first and second index is non-clustered index, and the third index which we created initially is the clustered index. And on each of these, whichever column we are using to create the clustered and non-clustered index can also be identified from this table. Now moving down, in order to drop a particular index that we have created, we can use the statement drop index followed by the table name dot index name. So we have to provide the table name as well as the index name. So now here I am going to drop the index underscore book underscore category index. So drop this index. So what is going to happen is command completed successfully. Now we have dropped the index. One more index I will drop here. Drop index book dot in underscore book underscore price. So what happens is that index will also get dropped. Now if I execute the by default stored procedure, we will get only single index. The other two index have been removed. Two of the indexes, which is one of the index was a clustered index and the other index was a non-clustered index. Both the indexes were removed, and now we only have one index on the table, which is int underscore book underscore name, which is a non-clustered index and which is created on the column name. And creating clustered and non-clustered index, we'll have to learn a lot more things to understand based on which column we have to create clustered and non-clustered index. Also, there are multiple criteria, and it mostly depends upon the query which we are going to write to determine which column we have to create the clustered and non-clustered index. So it is not possible to go ahead and create clustered or non-clustered index on a same column. So depending upon our requirement, we'll have to see on which column we have to create clustered and non-clustered indexes. Thank you for watching the video. If you find the video useful, subscribe the channel. Thank you.